Okay, what we're looking at now is it's the center wheel and the fourth wheel sticking through. So the fourth wheel is where the second hand goes, and we need to fit the cannon pinion. So in order to fit the cannon pinion, we just need to put some oil in place, and it's D5 for this one. So I'm going to put a little bit of D5 on the side here, and I like to just put a tiny bit on the bottom jewel as well. Just going to try and get that into focus. Just a little down there, and that helps with the smoothness, certainly when you come to operate the watch. And here's the cannon pinion, and we're just going to line that up over the top. And push down until we hear the click. Right, okay, so we do also need to oil the rest of these jewels before we put on the only plate that makes this different to a 7S36. So the ones that we don't want to go anywhere near is the escape, which is this one here. We don't want to oil on that at all. We want to lube that a little bit. This one and that one, and it's Mobius 9010 for those. And unfortunately it is a little bit blurry again for me. I think it's sharp for you guys, so let's see if I can do this freehand. I think I've got much oil left on the oiler there actually. I've done this through looking through the camera instead, which is really difficult, really difficult for me. So now we've done that, this plate that I'm going to offer up now is the only difference between the 7S26 and the 7S36. It's just dual count. I'm sure it has some form of function. So we get it all in place. I just realised none of that was on film. My apologies. So I've just put it over a post here, and then we're just going to line it up so that I can put the screw in that hole there. So I'll put the screw, and then we can cut to the desktop where we can continue with the rest of the build. Okay, so the only difference you can see now is I put the black plastic shroud back on. Didn't need to show you how to do that really, that's pretty self-explanatory. So it's now time to rebuild the calendar work side, and this is a reasonably simple affair. The first thing I want to do is to just put a tiny drop of oil, because I forgot to do it on the microscope, on the minute wheel here on the post. So just a tiny bit on the bottom of that, and then we can offer that wheel up. And then you want to make sure it's meshing nicely with the cannon pinion. So that's that in place. And as you can probably tell, I'm really prepared. So we then need the day and the date wheel fingers, and that will just drop down. Oops, actually before I do that, I also need to put in the intermediate wheel, which is another nylon wheel. All the gears face down. Oops. And in testing, I've knocked it out. And now it's jumped out the movement as well. So you can see that this is what you have to suffer in this hobby. Things not doing what they are told. So next it's this, and I forget which hole it goes over. It has to go on this post, and there's another post at the top, and it also needs to engage with the nylon wheel. Proving to be particularly tricky. It's been a while since I've done one of these, and I know there is a knack. I'm just not feeling it right now. Just one moment. Okay, so I just had to get my pegwood, and you just need to make sure that nylon thing's out of the way. Put this on the second hole, and then if you put it on the top one, then you can see that that's a definite, it goes home quite nicely. So there's a few things we need to fit now. The first one is the little other plastic gears that we have, which is for the quick set of the date. That one goes in like so. And it's important they go in the right way, because if they don't, it won't work. And I've found that out to my cost many times. So with that, we're just then gonna, this is where everything starts to like to move. I need to offer up the date disc. Have it in position. Okay, then we need to, oops, I was going to say we need to drop the cover in. And then we've just got to put the 3 screws back in and the little screw. Okay, so all the screws I'll put back into position, and at this point it's worth testing. Let's just get that into focus. So pull the crown, and as you can see, that is going to work. So we just need to fit the day wheel now. And that will just fit over the top. And sometimes you can engage these. There we go, that's engaged. There's a little lever in there, which I've shown in other videos, and so we're just going to put the, that's not the right clip, is it? The plot thickens. Okay, so rather than be a real nice polished video, I've got another confession to make, and I bet loads of you have been screaming the whole time, thinking, what are you doing? I haven't fit the hour wheel. I mean, it's an absolute disgrace that I've not done that, to be honest with you, but my parts are all over the place after the last month of not touching this watch, and I don't know, I got carried away. So it's only now when I've come to try and fit the little clip for the date ring that I realise, well, it's not going to fit because it needs that wheel there. So this is not a really good tutorial, is it? Because if you then following blindly along to this, you've now made the same mistake that I've just made. So real apologies, guys. Like I say, I like to show all my mistakes. Don't really like to retake anything if I can. Everything's done on the fly. So I'm going to strip this back down, fit that, and with a click of a finger for you guys, really, I will be back and it'll be looking exactly the same, only this time with the hour wheel in position. So here we are, all stripped back. I thought I'd better show you the placement. So of course it's going to fit over the top there and engage with the intermediate wheel like so, and of course the minute wheel. So that is all the motion put back in. So again, next time you're going to see it, it will be back to how it was a few moments ago. Right then, here we go, we're back at where we were before. Let's just forget all that mistake ever happened, and I know I want to, put it that way. Right, okay, so let's get on with the next part, which is to fit the day wheel. Now the day wheel has a little jumper spring, and that is here, and part of that plate. On some Seikos you've got to poke through some of these holes with an old oiler or something to engage that. That actually gets engaged with the gear underneath, and on this one it's like this little plastic molded gear which is part of the actual wheel itself. However, on these Seiko 7S36s and 26s, I've found that you can just place the wheel on, and then if you get a bit of pegwood, perhaps your finger, you can just turn this and you hear a little click, and then you know that it's in place. And then you've got to fit the C-clip. Here's the C-clip. C-clip has a chamfer around the edge, and that chamfer needs to be pointing down. So basically it's counterintuitive because you think it's got to be the other way, but it's got to be the chamfer's down, flat face is up. I say this on just about every Seiko video that I do, and it's important because if you want to service the watch again, or somebody else comes to service the watch, you can easily remove the C-clip. If it's the other way, then it makes it a little bit more challenging. So there we go. C-clip is installed, and now we should be able to turn this, and yes, as you can see, we get everything rotating quite nicely. So now all we'll have to do is fit the dial. So I'm just going to get the dial, and then I'll show you how easy it is to fit that back. Okay, so to fit the dial, nice, easy, straightforward, just a friction fit. Excuse my fingers a bit. You line up the window there with the crown. Just going to drop that on and gently press it on. till it hits home, which is what it's done there. So now the dial is on. All we have to do is fit the hands. So the usual, fit the hands, pull the crown out. Pull the crown out too far, so we can wind the watch, and we want to wind it until the number is about to change. Like so. Just going to push the crown in, bring in the hour hand, and just try and line that up with 12. Once you're happy with it, I've got a tool, hand pushing tool, and I can gently push that down and examine it. And then you just want to look from different angles. I don't know if this is coming through on camera, to make sure that it's sitting parallel and straight, and that it's not sort of bent upwards or bent downwards. And then once you're happy with that, you can then move on to the minute hand. Exactly the same procedure. And as you can see, that one moved, so don't want that. Okay, just if you have these sort of moments where it's not going on properly, take it off, start again. And then I'm going to line those up. Making sure it looks okay. And then once I'm happy, before I put the second hand on, just going to wind the hands on. Just going to make sure that they're not touching anywhere. And then once I'm happy with that, we will seat the second hand. And here is the second hand. Oops. So here's the second hand that I've dropped. Try again. And just offer that up to the hole. And then you want to be sure there's not going to foul on the hands, which in my case, because I'm rushing a little bit here, as you can see, the hands aren't on quite correctly, and that is fouling. That is very typical. So in this moment, I then have to remove them and pull them all back on. So I'm going to do that now off camera. Yet another mistake, but I'm not perfect. Usually I get hands on pretty straight first time, but I am getting a bit of reflection actually from the angle I'm at, and that's the excuse I'm going to use on this occasion. So I'm just going to set them correctly, cut back, and show you. Okay, next attempt. Obviously they've gone on fine, and now you can see it all in action and clearing the minute hand. And of course what you'd want to do now as well is just wind the crown on. So you wind that on, just let that go past so you can see. So the idea is to get the date to change as close to 12 o'clock as you can. So that changed something like about 10 to, didn't it? Thereabouts. I actually wasn't paying attention. I don't know. It is actually quite late at night now here where I am. Yeah, so it's at 10 to, so I could actually adjust that ever so slightly more to get a bit more accuracy. But that is how it is. For now, certainly for this video, I'm now going to case the movement and show you the finished watch. Okay, watch is in the case, and a couple of things we need to do. First of all, I need to fit the transmission wheel. It transfers all the power from the winding, so when the rotor goes around, this is what it's going to turn. Turns these pull levers and thus turns the ratchet wheel here, which winds the mainspring. So it's one of those setups, and I'm just going to use some Mobius D5, and it's quite a high friction point here because obviously all this is going to be taking a lot of movement. So we're going to bring the wheel in. It's got a little gear on the bottom which I don't think is focusing. There. And place that on the top. And then you don't want to catch the pull wheel itself, sorry, the pull levers themselves underneath it. So once you're happy with the position, you bring in the screw, and remember that this screw is a left-handed screw. And then once that's in, you can test it. And what you're looking at here is the click as I rotate this, clicking over, and that's winding the spring, and of course backwards, because this thing is multi-directional. And then of course the last thing to do is to also oil with the same oil. Now I tend to do this on the microscope, but I've packed all the microscope up now, is to get some oil just near the ends of the pull levers. I like to put a little bit on the threads because it will work its way around. And if you've got any excess, then of course just dab it with the Rodico. And as I say, as that will go around, of course that will start lubricating everything. And then all we need to do is put the rotor on, and the rotor, certainly if you are right-handed, I think it's best to put the rotor nearest the crown, and if you're left-handed like me where the crown is pointing up your arm, you want the rotor the opposite way, because that way this is always at the bottom of your wrist, and as you're walking along and moving, that is more likely to be winding much more effectively. On the 7S36 it has a little arrow, and you would be lining it all up. You'd be moving the pull lever to here, line it up with here, and the arrow would be pointing as well. On this particular one we don't have that set up, but it's the same principle. It's there for optimum winding. Okay, so again, once you're happy with the rotor it's on, you can test. And I'm perfectly happy with that. The next thing to do is put the case back on. Now I've put a new seal on the case back, and all that will remain is for me to tighten that on there, which I'll do off camera, and then I'll fit the bracelet, flip it over, and you can see the watch all finished. Okay, here we go guys, the finished watch. And if you recognize the bezel, that's because it's from the bezel video that I put on my channel just a few days ago. This is the one I painted. This watch, it looks pretty good now, to be honest with you. It could do with a little bit more tarting up. To be honest with you, I've got to just try and work on the bracelet a little bit more. But it's a nice mid-size diver, or diver look. It's hard for me to get this in the shot, but you can kind of see it there. I've got quite small wrists, and this is just the right size for me. I'll just get my vernier and we'll just see what it's measuring at. So yeah, so it's a 40mm plus the crown there. So that is how to, or perhaps even how not to rebuild a Seiko 7S36 movement. I've made a few mistakes along the way, and equally this video has taken quite some filming, to the sum of, I don't know now, 4 weeks perhaps, maybe a bit longer, with all different problems, certainly with the hairspring that I had, and just finding the time to do it. So hopefully my colleague Dave Walford is going to be really pleased to see this watch. I know that he's looking forward to it. So trouble is, we're all on lockdown here in the UK now for coronavirus. So if you're watching in a year's time, this is all finished, hopefully. So I'll probably have to post this off to him so he doesn't have to wait any longer at all. I'm going to end the video here. So thanks very much indeed for watching this, and if you did like it, please give me a like. It helps me a lot, and it certainly helps the algorithm for the channel to drive more people here to see what I get up to. Please leave comments below. Of course, I read every single one of them, and I do try to answer as many as I can. Check out all my other videos, please, and also go and have a look at the Facebook group, Retro and Vintage Watches and Restorations. There's plenty of people in there who are just as bonkers as I am, who would like to talk and discuss watches. So more videos coming along very soon. Catch you in the next one. See you later.